Welcome boys and girls, Christine here with a discussion about the Campaign AI Beta 2, made available by Creative Assembly earlier today, calling it Proving Grounds. So the Proving Grounds have returned to Total War Warhammer as they said they would be. Now I chose Emperor Karl France because this is a campaign that I've played multiple times, modded, unmodded, so I have a good baseline to compare it to. However, it is worth pointing out that a number of the changes, though not all of them, but a number of the changes that Creative Assembly made are targeting longer campaigns, and specifically the AI decision-making with larger empires. So this is just a first impression situation. I think to really get accurate data, you would need to play many campaigns and longer ones. Based on what I know, Creative Assembly considers the mid-game around turn 50, 40, 50, maybe 60. And also based on their data that I've heard about, many people play campaigns around, they end their campaigns around turn 80. So whatever they consider the mid-late game is obviously very different than what people are going to experience on a legendary campaign difficulty. Typically speaking, I personally consider the early game up to turn 25, 30 or so, 25 to 30 or so. Mid-game from 30 to around 50, and everything beyond that is around late game. So that's when you start seeing people getting to tier 5. That's when you're seeing end-game units starting to be unlocked by both yourself and AI. At least on legendary difficulty, though I'm sure Creative Assembly does balance the game around normal. Still, this is a modded campaign. Specifically, I'm using Sigmar's Heirs. That's the only mod of relevance. Everything else is just like, Toggle, Fog of War, Console Command, all that kind of stuff. Just quality of life things, really, or things to help me check out various things on the campaign. And I use this mod because it's giving me Vault, and that's all there is to it. But I've played campaigns without it, so I know exactly what would happen. And usually, things don't really change for the Empire with this mod. So, Karl France's campaign, I think, is a good baseline to check because of its starting position, having to deal with a lot of foes. So if things are changed in terms of AI behavior, this is probably one of the best campaigns to play to test things out. Because you're dealing with Festus, you're dealing with Castrak, you're dealing with Vlad. So, with that in mind, let's talk about what I've seen so far in this campaign. I might start a new campaign and stream it, I might continue this campaign, but okay. They've introduced various elements to faction potential. So, certain minor factions like the Electric Counts have a different way of calculating faction potential, which does seem to be greater in general than what it used to be. So as an example, Kislev was wiped out by fraud, but Prague wasn't. Prague itself has fallen, but that's actually a relatively recent thing. Kastalten is still alive, Boris Ursus is still alive. But very importantly, Prague is still alive, and the minor Norscan faction that they started a war with actually lasted quite a bit of time. They did mention Prague, they did mention that minor Norscan faction, they did mention Electric Counts, they mentioned minor High Elven factions, Caphaean factions, so you see the Celestial Loyalists, they're still kicking around. Even the Jade Custodians, the Jade Custodians can be wiped out very quickly, though it seems they're in the process of that happening. It is reasonable for that. But in terms of the unique status of faction potential for these factions, I have seen a difference. Like Stirland survived, shockingly enough. Vlad did not just conquer or all of Stirland, they gave as good as they got. Midland didn't completely fall. It was touch and go, to be sure. But Midland didn't fall, Marienburg didn't fall that quickly. It's still tier 3 weirdly enough, though I think at this point they should be tier 4. But I think they've been consuming a lot of resources. They wiped out the Black Pit. So I've certainly seen a difference with these kind of minor factions that they specifically mentioned they were going to touch on in their own special category of, minor factions that can have better faction potential. It's not universal, like the High Elves still, Alariel and Tyrion still conquered Safri, but Illyrian's still around. Still, I am seeing difference. In terms of major factions, they specifically mentioned that they would buff Itza, they would nerf Skulltaker's faction potential. Faction potential is how far a faction can grow. It is randomized. Not every faction that they mentioned in those patch notes would have been affected. But it's been a bit touch and go for certain factions. Like over here, Warzag was about to end up dominating the entirety of Khemri, and then Volkmar barely stopped him. Well, I think Volkmar and Setrat kind of teamed up and stopped him, but there was a cost with respect to that. Setrat's faction potential was supposed to be nerfed. He's clinging on, barely. Teclis, still alive. Like, you might be surprised by that, but Teclis usually gets wiped out very quickly. So, Kairos himself was supposed to be nerfed, and it does certainly feel like he's been nerfed. He has been affected in a fairly substantial way by faction potential. Khalida is still around and kicking. Forik and Krokar haven't wiped her out. So there is clearly a difference in terms of how faction potential is working, and you can clearly see the impact. In terms of AI decision making, and specifically about how the AI moves, how passive and aggressive it is, well, my experience, having played on Legendary, modded, unmodded, thousands of hours in Warhammer 3, there are many times in a campaign where you see the AI either suiciding its army against you or against other AI factions. I've seen far less of that in this campaign. I've certainly seen it, but almost every time I was attacked by a faction, like say for instance I fought Vlad, he didn't just send one army at me. He sent 3. I had to run away. I had to use cheesy tactics like ambushes and all that to peel away some of his armies, but I had to fight for it. It wasn't the case, like, he would do so before, to be sure, but there were plenty of situations where you'd be fighting Vlad, and it would be one army at a time. Consistently throughout this campaign, I have seen the AI mass its forces when it's dealing with a threat, and throw those forces together as specific threat. I think that's the reason Kislev, Katrin end up getting wiped out over here, though I think Draika is at War of Fra at this point. But you're also seeing Clan Ishin over here with free stacks, not full stacks, but free stacks in this situation, marching against their enemies. Sure, there's still enemies that are, still armies that are spread out all over the place in situations, but I've seen armies either marching in tandem or close enough together that they could reinforce. The AI still spread its forces around, but yeah, that they do tend to also concentrate things a bit better from what I've experienced. Now, another problem is with regards to the AI sometimes just stopping what it's doing and just sitting on its ass, not doing anything. That still happens to an extent. Like, I've seen, like, Tyrion took out the Galleon Graveyard fairly quickly in this campaign, which is surprising, and that is a good thing, so it meant that he was actually getting things done. But yeah, you can see, like, Noctilus's 2 stacks over here, not full stacks, but still two armies over there. Marching in tandem, you can see Tyrion has 2 armies, so they're moving together, they're doing things. From what I've seen on the campaign map, though, keep in mind, I was not pausing every turn to see how the AI was moving. I was just like, a couple of turns, I was just checking things out. I've seen more of this than I've ever seen in Total War. On the flip side, you can still see the AI just like sitting on its ass and not doing anything. So, Alfarian was about to have Nakari bearing down on Torre Vress. There wasn't a war between them, but it was about to happen. Like, Nakari was about to march on Torre Vress. It was very clear. I intervened, stopped Nakari. But Alfarian's been sitting in the south over here of Southern Vress with 5 stacks for quite a few turns. He's only recently moved 2 stacks to the north, and that's literally because I took this territory and sold it to him. So there's still AI derpiness and AI passivity. And there's also a reluctance of the AI to get involved in certain engagements. Like, Elspeth should not be sitting on her ass, suffice to say. Like, I'm sure Elspeth could have done a lot against Vlad by this point, but she's literally been saying idle. Well, okay, she's at war with the quote-unquote changeling. She's been at war with the changeling, but good luck finding the changeling, right? Unless you own Stirland. I defeated the changeling. The changeling's AI is still very questionable, so I didn't see an improvement there, but it is worth pointing out, you can't draw every conclusion from just a single campaign, you certainly can't draw conclusions from a turn 23 campaign when the changes they're making are explicitly targeting longer campaigns. But from what I've seen, the faction potential changes work both for major factions and minor factions. The AI decision making in terms of how it's using its armies when it does go to war with a faction or another seems to be better. But there's still plenty of AI just sitting around, not doing anything, not engaging. Right? But yeah. So, faction potential, as I mentioned, Azag is still alive at this point. Ungrim can wipe him out fairly quickly in a campaign, though I think maybe the faction potential favored Azag over here. Frat is a clear winner because of these changes. I mean, it's kind of shocking to see Catherine wiped out before either Castalton or Borsers, or even Astanke. Like, Morathi was supposed to be nerfed. Yeah, so much for that notion. Although Astanke is still alive, right? So it's like literally Catherine is the only major legendary Lord of Kislev that's been wiped out. Although Astanke only has this army. So there's still questionable decisions that I'm seeing over here. And I think one of the things I would say to Creative Assembly on this, if the AI has finished its war, it's conquered territory, it should go out there and do stuff. It should not be sitting on its ass when it's recruiting 5 fucking stacks. That's a waste of money. It should either not recruit 5 stacks, like Alfarian, or it should go out and use this army, these armies. The same with Elspeth, similar situation over there. Like, I think Alfarian and Elspeth are the clear examples of that kind of situation, that kind of derpiness of the AI that we're still seeing. There's improvements, clear improvements in terms of AI behavior, but there's still more work to be done from my point of view on that subject. And yes, still plenty of AI passivity. And again, this is a legendary campaign. Now, I do believe Creative Assembly needs to do a better job balancing their campaigns on different difficulties. I also feel they need to consider the fact that the AI should be using its resources regardless of campaign or battle difficulty, rather than on lower difficulties. I'm not sure how it is on lower difficulties with Dispatch, because obviously I didn't test that out. But previous experiences, like, if you set the battle difficulty to lower, the AI will do less stuff, even less than what you're seeing someone like Elspeth do in a campaign like this. So I think that's absolutely something they need to tackle. Not just like, oh, we'll change the AI. Okay, but what about those difficulties? Especially if people are lowering, say, battle difficulty to not have to fight as many grinding manual battles as much, and just auto-resolve some battles they know they will win. Not that you'll take great, not that the casualty ratio will be great even if you set things too easy, just worth pointing out. So that is a factor I do think they need to address with respect to that. It is better, but more work to be done. However, this is just a first impression. I think I do need to play at least a 100-turn campaign to really give you a solid impression of what's going on, but that's what I've seen so far. Questine signing out. Stay tuned for more.